there's only been like maybe 5 episodes where your name hasn't been brought up, so I think we'll be all right. But yeah, welcome back to Pest Control Millionaire. We're on episode number 91 already, which is cruising on by. We're making good progress. You guys probably just heard me say this guy here probably doesn't need a whole lot of introduction, but if you guys want one, here is one. He was the founder of CitiTurf, which is a lawn care company out of Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, right?
Yep.
He's also was the founder of Service Autopilot, and you guys probably know him as the Lawn Care Millionaire. Welcome to the show, Jonathan Pototschnik. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, Jonas? Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Feel like we haven't seen each other in a minute, but we talked.
No, it's been a bit. The lake was the last time I saw you.
Yeah, and I have people pounding on my door on a daily basis lately saying, hey, get a hold of JP. We got to get all the guys together. So there's that. So they said on the podcast, say, make sure you bring it up.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, I'm up for it. Yeah, I'm game for it. It's just been my schedule. A couple of people have proposed it and we've not been around. And then Tiffany, I don't know. Tiffany had foot surgery. That's been a really long recovery.
What happened there?
It was a planned surgery. She's a runner and she had a bunion, like kind of a common surgery, but it was pretty significant. So I think for 10 or 11 weeks, she was non-weight bearing, something like that. And then she's been in a boot and she's back to walking, but she can't run yet. So anyway, that really, like, she didn't want people coming and staying at our house and she didn't want to throw a party and she can't really just let everybody come here and she do nothing. So we've been on hold in terms of having any events at our house. So yeah, back to your point, I've been hearing, hey, we'll come through Dallas or let's all meet up somewhere. And we're like, we're game for it. She's just got to get past this.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for it. Right out of the gate, I got to ask you a question because I was thinking about this. If you could pick one person to sit down with in a room for a day, who would you pick?
Wow. One person for a day. That's a great question. What's my agenda?
Let's go with business since that's what we're working on.
If it came to business, I'd go Jeff Bezos.
Really?
Yeah.
How come? I mean, you obviously.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. He's been a little bit successful, so I thought he'd be kind of interesting. No, the scale of what they've built and his way of approaching things, as in he did the time and really took a lot of risks and really deferred a lot of, we'll call it gratification, especially in terms of taking revenue and profit inside the organization so that he could build something really big and really, really dominant. Not that other people don't do that, but he absolutely has a reputation for having had the foresight to just keep investing and investing and investing and play this incredibly long game. And I think the long game is not the way people look at building businesses now. Now, a lot of very successful people do, but the majority who claim they want to be very successful do not look at business as a long game, and Bezos might be one of the best at it. And so there's other reasons, but just the logistics and the scale of what that guy built. And I'll add one more. I mean, he didn't just build Amazon, he built AWS, and they've done Prime, and they've done all these other businesses within the business. There's not a lot of people that pull that off successfully. And, Amazon's practically a conglomerate at this point, and that is not successfully done in most cases. So I just think he's one of the most interesting leaders out there.
Yeah. What's the percentage of, I don't even know, of Amazon does he even own anymore? It's low, right? Like he gave most of the equity away, right? Do you know? I'm going to look it up.
He owned a pretty sizable percentage, I want to say in the 20s with his wife, but I'm sure that's not the case. I'm sure I'm way high on that. But I know his wife, when they got divorced, has a quarter of the business now.
Yeah, she's like the richest woman in the world.
Yeah.
Or the top 10.
Yeah. And so I don't know the number to that. It's not going to be in the 20s. That's way too high. Otherwise, he'd be a trillionaire. No, he wouldn't, because that company's probably worth a couple trillion. I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm going to look it up while we're talking, but I was curious what you thought of, because we have you as mentor, and I know you have mentors. So who do you look up to? And I was like, well, what does Jonathan think if you could sit down with one person?
Yeah, I don't really per se read a lot of stuff about him or follow him very closely. I'm aware of him and I'm aware of what they've done. And I've read a book on Amazon.
9%.
Okay. I wonder what he owned. What he sold a lot over the years too. But anyway, I wouldn't say that I study him here or anything like that in terms of thinking about how to build a business. I just think he's probably one of the most impressive business leaders.
Is there someone that you do read a lot of books of or watch closely that you look up too close?
Yeah, I would. Nobody close, but
Dan Kennedy was one of them, right?
Early on, hands down, Dan Kennedy. I just consumed everything that Dan put out. I went to multiples of his events, and then I joined a local business group that he wasn't running, but he was doing the spin-off chapters, and there was one in Dallas. So no doubt about it. And then that led me to meet other people, a variety of people who I also learned a lot from. But Richard Koch would be the guy that I would probably say now.
That's the STAR principle?
STAR principle, simplify, 80-20. I would say if there was one person I would most consume now, it would probably be him.
I haven't read that book in probably 6-7 years when you told us about it. And the 80-20 rule. But like the 80-20 principle is pretty easy to figure out, right?
Yeah, it seems very self-explanatory, but he adds context to it and a way of really thinking about it. And I would say challenging yourself to say, are you really doing it, living it? I'm not compared to the way he does.
Right. So if you haven't heard about GorillaDesk yet, it's a super sick software. It's actually made by one of my really close friends, Chris Mareshi. So Chris built GorillaDesk to help streamline his own personal business over 10 years ago. But now GorillaDesk is used by over 4,000 companies. And today it's become one of the most premier platforms in our industry. So what's really unique about GorillaDesk is that it's a simple all-in-one solution that's really easy for your team to use. GorillaDesk offers a seamless onboard experience and best-in-class support with no additional cost. It's all included in your subscription. Inside the software, you'll find a whole suite of features. Scheduling, invoicing, routing, and sales pipelines, integrated VoIP, text messaging, and pretty much all the automation you're going to need, and much, much more. So if you guys are still relying on paper or spreadsheets or fighting with an old software, I highly recommend that you guys check out GorillaDesk. So we have a link in our description. Click on that, and it'll take you right to their free trial. Now let's get back to the show. So you just had a 3-year sabbatical, so welcome back.
Thank you.
How was that?
Been back. It was really good.
What did you learn?
I learned that I don't need to do another 3-year sabbatical. I learned that I never thought I wasn't going to keep working. Tiffany would sometimes say when we're out and about and people are like, what do you do? She's like, he's retired. I'm like, God, I hate that. I'm not retired. I'm just taking a break. I hate that language. And so I never thought that I would not work again, but I didn't know what form it would take. I had a bunch of ideas. What I learned was I have to work. During that, I learned quite a bit. I'm trying to put this together. So I went through these 3 phases. My first phase was kind of just being off and this, I just don't feel right. And, not depressed. I'm not a person that gets depressed. I'm fortunate that that's not really something I have to deal with, but something wasn't right. I didn't feel happy. I wasn't unhappy. I was still happy. It wasn't right. I don't know I could never quite, and that's the way I'm stuttering on this is exactly the situation. I could not put my finger on it, but things weren't perfect. They weren't ideal. Not that anything's ever perfect.
So in a good analogy, is it kind of like when maybe you and your wife or someone or kids are fighting at home and you go to work and you just feel off when you're at work because that little thing's still in the back of your head?
Yeah. I mean, that would be a fair analogy. It's that kind of a feeling. It's like, man, things should be better. I should have more energy. I should feel better. I should feel more excited. I should have more optimism. I should have these feelings and I'm not having them. It's that sort of a thing.
So phase 1, you're off.
That was phase 1.
Yeah.
Phase 2, I got to it. And I was, part of the problem I think was it was during COVID or towards the end of COVID or whatever period. So that in general screwed everything up. A bunch of the stuff I would have normally wanted to do. So I was at home more and I'm more of a people person. I like in-office environment. I like being around my team. So I had lost my team because I sold the business and I had stepped down as CEO in April of 21. And so there was a lot going on that I think compacted. It wasn't just about taking a sabbatical. And then I got to a place where it's like, hey, I could be pretty happy living this life. Now we're traveling more. I'm doing more car racing stuff, doing a bunch of mountain biking again, riding dirt bikes. I'm doing all that kind of stuff. So I feel like I've got a bunch of activities that I can do and I'm liking that. And so I kind of got to this place where it's like, hey, I could probably find enough stuff that keeps me excited that I could never work again. And it would be okay. It'd be kind of fun. And then in the third phase, I got to the place like, I can't keep doing this. Like, this is fun. This has been great, but I am kind of ready to not be traveling so much. I'm ready to be working again. I need something to build. And, what I found is I would say to myself, hey, I want to go race cars all the time. But the reality was I'd look at the calendar and I have an event coming up and I'd be like, really just kind of don't want to do that. I want to work. I want to build again. And so that was the 3 phases. It started out as kind of being lost and then get into this phase of acceptance of, hey, I could take a forever break. And then third was, I'm ready to go again. I'm energized. I'm excited. There was a long stretch there where I didn't feel super excited about going again. And it was a guy I know, friend, Dan Martell, on 2 different occasions during this period told me, because the only thing I did is I spoke at his event twice during this period. And so I didn't really do any other events. And both times I saw him, he's like, are you still taking your break or something along those lines? And he's like, and he's just I just felt this, this is a bad idea. And he kept saying, I took a break and I lost a lot of momentum. And so that was sort of in my head. I was like, is this a mistake? And so to wrap this up, I'd say he's dead on. You lose a lot of momentum. You really do. It takes a while to get back in the game. Of course, during a 3-year period, there's a lot you could have built and progress that could have been made. Another thing that I learned was when you're traveling all the time, you don't actually take better care of yourself from a health standpoint. It's really hard to be in other countries and eat really good and have the ability to get in all your workouts. Like, just a lot of stuff slips. Doesn't have to fall apart, but it slips. And so I understand fully what he's talking about losing momentum, and I agree. However, the summary is I'm very happy that I did it. I would do it again.
That's awesome. And so did you know what you were going to do when you came back?
Yeah, I had 5 different concepts for what I would do next. And I just didn't know how fast I would do each or what I would do or which of the 5 I wanted to do, because that's too many. And I had talked to you about working with young entrepreneurs. That was pretty high on the list. And so I had a general idea of where I was going to go coming back.
And so before we started going live, you said that first thing you did went back to CitiTurf, right?
Yeah. As you know, I for years talked about getting re-involved in CitiTurf.
I was excited that you're going back there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think maybe a year earlier during the sabbatical, because when I took the sabbatical, I didn't say I'm going to take 3 years. There was a moment where I had a conversation with Tiffany at dinner one night and I said, hey, I want to start working again. And I gave her a date and she's like, I think that was the beginning of 23. So it would have been a much shorter sabbatical, something like that. I can't remember my dates now, but it was in 23. I was going to go back to work. And Tiffany's like, I think it was the very beginning. I just don't feel like you've really been that much more present on your break. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. And so I decided to extend it and keep going. And it was wise. We did a bunch of cool stuff during that period of time. But my point there was I had been thinking that CitiTurf would be one of the things. And I remember even having Philip set me up an office at CitiTurf, which was really more of like a closet. And then he set it up for me. And then he said, like, can you not come up here till maybe later in the summer because you're going to get everybody all distracted? And then I just didn't do anything for CitiTurf. We went through that process. And then in April of this year, 24, I started working on CitiTurf. And I got pretty excited about the work I was doing. I was enjoying it. And it got me back into the groove. It was a little bit of a slow start at first. And then I started going where I'm back to my normal self. Everything that pops up on the calendar that's not work, I'm like, God, do we really have to do that? I have to fight that. But that's how I've always been. It's like, this is a distraction. Like, really? I mean, God, like we're going to a concert tomorrow night. It's like, really? We got to leave at 4:30. So Tiffany and I have a whole debate about what time we have to leave. It's like, they really it's the opening. I mean, the main act isn't going on till later. Do we really have to be there? Because I'm trying to get my full work schedule in now. So I'm fully back. It took me a little while to get back to that.
And are you at your new office?
No, I'm now working at the house. So I'm not even using the office, and so a number of things have happened. So I start working on CitiTurf full time, and then I think, well, I'll go up there, and then I'm like, man, I'm really being productive right here. If I go up there, because I'm focused on very specific stuff. So if I go up there, what's going to happen is I'm going to see this thing and that thing, and I'm going to get this idea and that idea, and then I'm going to get all distracted, and I'm going to work on all these different things or help Philip with all these different things because I'm really there just to help. I'm not running this thing. Those guys do not need me. They run a very good operation. I'm not coming to mess with their world. I'm just there to help. Like, what do you want me to do, kind of thing. And so I just decided if I go up there, I'm going to get myself distracted, so I'm going to stay here. The other part of this is here being my house. And so I like where I'm sitting right now is where I work every day, all day. And then the second part of that was that I was going to start, for example, launch a new YouTube channel. I was going to do these other things. And I then decided, I'm not even going to do that. Because I expected to have launched new social stuff months ago. And I decided if I do that, it's going to get me distracted from being full-time on CitiTurf. And so I have roughly stayed almost full-time. I got another thing I'm working on, but I've stayed almost full-time up until now on the CitiTurf business. And I'm going to stay really hardcore on it until next year sometime.
That's awesome. So one question, is Philip happy that you're back?
I think so. We talk every day. I mean, we don't necessarily talk on the phone every day, but I use Loom, and I got Philip using Loom. He used to use a different product, and we talk through Loom all the time, like every day. I've got at least one message or two messages stacked up from him right now. So we're trading video messages all the time. So I really like working with him and I've always liked working with him. I just couldn't because of Service All Pie. He is like, he's good. I mean, that guy, he's a hardworking guy, and he's smart, and he's creative, and he doesn't put up. My take on him is he doesn't put up with much. Like, this needs to get done. We're going to do it. And he does not. He's not really a compromiser. He's like, this is the path we have to go down. We're going to go down this path. And I just really like working with people like that. He's a keep your foot on the gas kind of guy. And so we complement each other wonderfully because he's a great operator. I'm not as good of an operator. I can be a CEO, but I need to be surrounded, and I think I can do a good job as CEO, but I need an operator, COO around me. And then Philip can sell. He says he can't sell, but it's baloney. He can sell. And he doesn't necessarily like the marketing stuff, and I like the marketing. And I love strategy and business model. And I would say he's not bad at that either. But so together, we're just a great team. So I really enjoy working with him.
That's cool. So my next question, I have a couple of questions that I already had pre-written before this started. So you're going back there, and I assumed it was going to be for marketing.
That's where I was starting. Yeah. So I have 3 objectives. One of which I think I've barely talked to him about. So one was rebuild everything, marketing, branding, communications, rebuild it all. That's what I'm focused on. I mean, you look at my trucks, and that was the design from 2007. I mean, way back, the beginning. And there's just a lot going on those trucks. They're fine. They work. I mean, those trucks kill it in our market, but they're just a lot. I mean, it just doesn't follow. I've learned a lot since then. Times have changed, and they can be vastly simplified in terms of what you're seeing. There's only 2 things that matter on the truck, in my opinion, in today's day and age. Pound in the logo, pound in the mascot. Phone number doesn't matter. Website doesn't matter because we have a good name. People are going to Google it anyway if they want to find us. You could put the phone number on there. That's fine. But there's only 2 things that matter. And ideally, a short statement of what services we offer. Now, we're in a privileged position because we've been around a while now that people generally know what we do. But we have a problem where people think of us too much as, say, mowing and say bush trimming. And we're revenue-wise moving more towards fertilization, weed control, arbor, and pest, still doing the other stuff. And so we got to really pound those 3 services into people's mind. I would like to keep irrigation forefront as well. And so that's about all that needs to be on the truck. So that's an example of branding. We're moving way more heavily towards the use of Chester, who's our mascot, and just doing a bunch of cool stuff with him, rewriting everything. I mean, there's so much marketing. It's communication with the client. So what do you do when, for example, we discover they have a shade issue? How do you preempt the conversation about a shade issue from a fertilization weed control standpoint, where they're going to eventually say to you, hey, I hired you 3 years ago. When you took over, the lawn looked great. 3 years later, my last grass looks bad. You're killing off my grass. No, not really. You have a shade issue. In the last 3 to 4 years, your trees have really grown. Like, you've got a million of these scenarios that all require education. And the team at the door can't always do that education based on their knowledge level, skill level. Does the client even answer the door? So I've got a bazillion pieces of education, communication have to be built. Then you've got all the selling back into the base, and you've got driving revenue from selling to new clients. There's just so much. So by the time I'm done, I'll probably have built 60 pieces that are print that touch the client, and then untold number of multi-step emails, text messages, so much. The branding, I mean, what gets left on the wall next to the irrigation system, I mean, the thank you cards that get sent out to the client, the review system. I mean, there's so much. And it's a huge, huge project. And I've made a lot of progress. I'm also building a team, a marketing team around me. So
I was there. I'm assuming that you hired content writers,
Yeah. I actually was going to build an in-house team, and where I stand at the moment is predominantly building a team of contractors.
Yeah.
And I'll eventually build some element of in-house. But for now, I'm just building a team of contractors. So for example, from a design standpoint, I will have 3 designers or 4 designers that I can use at any one time. So I've got redundancy in a way that I wouldn't have, because the business could only probably justify 1 full-time designer. And actually, I don't even know if the business can justify long-term once we get through building all this content. However, with the social side, I think there's a lot of creative. So I think we could still justify a full-time, but could I divvy that out across 4 contractors and have some redundancy? And also what I've been doing is I give the same project to multiple people, and I take the best. And so that's kind of where we're at right now on that.
Cool. So that's objective 1 is marketing.
Yeah, objective 1 is marketing. Objective 2 is a play on marketing. It's the marketing around recruiting. Like, there's 2 things that matter in the business. I mean, there's more than 2 things, but it's like the engine that brings in all the clients and the engine that brings in all the team to do all the work that you sold. And then in the background, you've got everything operational that makes the whole thing work, so it doesn't all fall apart and blow up. And so, being that, go back to 80-20, what's the 80-20? The 80-20 is, how do we bring in more clients and how do we bring in more team members? So phase 2 for me will be assisting the team in bringing in more team members. There's an element there where it's marketing. It's the marketing that we go out into the world to where they live. It's the marketing that happens on Indeed or LinkedIn. It's the marketing that happens on our social channels. It's the marketing that is all the advertising, digital advertising that happens to recruit. And then there's also, and they've got some of this already, but could we, and I don't know the answer to this, could we make some improvements if we all get together and put our brains together on the physical action that happens in the field where humans are out physically recruiting? And so that's phase 2. And then phase 3 is something, you and I and many of us have talked about many times, and a lot of people do it. We don't run an EOS type model or a Vern Harnish scaling up type model inside CitiTurf. And so that's my third objective, is to bring that to that business. I mean, we did a lot of that at Service Autopilot. We don't do it at CitiTurf. Now, I can't speak to exactly what they do because I don't run the operations. It's not as though they don't do anything. There's a lot of good communication in the business, but could we bring a little more formality to that process? As an example, and I'll wrap with this, as an example, I have been incredibly distant from the business over the years, off distracted with Service Autopilot, and then I'm distracted with Academy. And while we would have periodic conversations, and when we had a conversation, I never went to the business. We'd meet at Outback or like a restaurant and have a conversation there for a few hours. And that would happen randomly on no schedule, no cadence. And by implementing something like an EOS, as I move out of the organization again, because I'm back for a season, I don't want to ever go back to being as uninvolved as I was. And a model like EOS will keep me involved on a weekly and quarterly basis to a degree, but only a small amount of my time. And so my long-term objective is to keep my foot in that business long-term. Again, not to run it, not to take over, just to assist. And so I think that third leg that I'm talking about will not only benefit the business, it will help me. It'll create structure for me to stay involved in the business long-term.
That's awesome. One of the pre-written questions that I had is, what do you think a CEO's job is? What is the biggest things he should focus on? So you pretty much answered those right there.
Yeah, well, there's a couple. I mean, I think it's the number one. I don't think the CEO's job is necessarily marketing and recruiting. I think there's a strong argument for it. This is. Let me give you the three. The three are the CEO and the vision. The vision. I just said it. The CEO's first objective is to cast a vision. So we're creating, as the CEO, a vision of where we are going as an organization. This is what we're going to accomplish. This is when we want to accomplish it. This is what success will look like. That's the vision. Who will we be in the market? How will we show up to the client? How will we show up to the team, et cetera? Then their objective, it's kind of like the old sports analogy is, we want to win. We know what the vision is. We want to win the Super Bowl. All right, now I got to go build the team that could make us a winning team so that we can get to the Super Bowl and then have a shot at winning it. So I cast a vision, and then my job as CEO is to build the team to accomplish that vision. Who needs to be on the team? Who doesn't need to be on the team? And then I've got to pay for that somehow. And you got to pay for growth. And how are you going to pay for it? And so those are your three big things that as I think about it, you have to do. Now, depending on when I kind of came up learning marketing in the Dan Kennedy world, Dan Kennedy would have said, as I remember it, that you should, as CEO, own, or as owner, you should own the marketing. And I don't totally disagree, but that's obviously what a marketing guy would tell you, that selling marketing stuff is like, you should own marketing. And I've tried to own, even at Service Autopilot towards the end, I still generally own marketing. I had a marketing leader, she owned it, but I'm still way more involved than I needed to be. And so I don't necessarily think you own marketing, but the reason I bring up this specific topic is if you're building a somewhat personality-based business where you're part of the brand and there's real power in that, then you can't really, in that example as CEO, ever escape being part of the brand and being somehow involved in marketing. And it may be as simple as you've built a team around you and you show up to do the videos and the pictures and, do some of the PR and things like that. But that's the fourth item that I would add to your CEO role, depending on what kind of business you build. But most people do not build a personality-based business. And so that one does not apply to them.
Gotcha. Going back to social, you and I talked about it a few months back, but will you be doing more YouTube videos for CitiTurf?
You mean me personally?
Yeah.
I don't know. I am addressing social I have a massive list of what I'm working on, and it's down the list a bit. I don't know. I mean, it's one of the reasons I've always been interested in kind of following what you're doing and talking to you and hearing how it's working, because I still am slightly unclear on what that best model looks like. And knowing how many other things I'm really interested in doing, I don't know if I have the time to do that as well.
Right. Does it really move the needle that much? And how long is it going to take to move the needle?
Yeah. Exactly. There's just all these things. And so there's an element of social that I think we can do without me falling into that role. My preference would be that I have my team very involved in that. And it's not one person, it's 5 people. And that would be my preference, but I don't know if it will work yet. So this is all yet to be decided.
Because as you know, social is just a lot of work. It's
tremendous amount.
At this level, it's content every day, or at least one day full time a week,
And as I get busier with all these, I just have so many opportunities and so many things that are interesting. As I get busier, am I going to look back and say, hey, man, I got to drop this one because the size of this opportunity, me being the face of this, is so much smaller than all the other things. And then that's kind of difficult if suddenly I disappear and I was the face. And so if you put a gun to my head and said, what are you going to do? I'd say, I'm going to try to build a team around social. Maybe it's not as good as having one person. Maybe it's not as good as having me who would be very passionate about it. But so what? What if it's diminished returns by 30%? Still better that it's not my time, and we have 5 different individuals in the company all play a role. We get, one of the things we're working towards, and we've done a few things around it now, is we want to start showing off the team more. Like, what do they look like? Like, who are they? Who are these people you're talking to? Are these people that are taking care of your property? And so there's an element of social where you just start to introduce more and more of the team, so people see who CitiTurf is. Like, we're real people, we're good people. And so I like the team element as well. So I'm highly inclined not to make it about me. I don't want to. Not that I want to make it about me. I'm highly inclined not to make me the focus of it.
What I like about that is going back to one of the books that you recommended early on was Antifragile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, if you walk away, like, then your social drops. Like, how do you make that thing where there's 4 or 5 people working on it, where it still keeps going without you? If you lose one person, it still keeps moving on. So I like that.
Yeah, I like it too.
Because it revolves all around Jonathan or all around Jonas, like, for content. And so I have to start getting away from that too. Like, get more technicians involved, more sales guys involved, create more content. That it's not just about me, it's about the brand. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm totally willing to do some of it. But frankly, if I just do some of it, in the beginning, I don't even think people know who I am. Nobody knows who I am in that business. I mean, I'll meet somebody and they'll ask. I'm like, I'll say, yeah, I own CitiTurf. I'm an owner in CitiTurf. And they'll be like, oh, I think I've seen your video on the website or something like that. I'll hear that every once in a great while. I mean, very, very seldom. Nobody knows who I am.
How do you stay so focused, and how do you know what to work on?
I've learned to be focused. I still fight focus. No doubt about it.
You stay up to like 3 a.m. working.
Yeah. And I tended to be most focused after the kids and Tiffany went to bed. That's when I really could just go. From about 10 o'clock on, I felt like I moved the ball forward. I regret that I stayed up that late sometimes because it's really messed up my sleep and a variety of other things. And most of the things I like to do are early morning kinds of things, or like a lot of the activities. Meaning it gets really hot in Texas. So if you want to go mountain bike or ride dirt bikes or race cars, you really got to be up at like 6 o'clock. And it doesn't go well with staying up till 3 o'clock. So my schedule, I kind of regret that I live a late night schedule, but at the same time, I'm like, it moved the ball forward and got me where I wanted to go in life. I got a lot done during those hours. That's when all the progress was made. So
is your schedule back to 3 a.m. now?
It had slipped back to it. Tiffany was out of town. She went up to Seattle and Oregon with took her sisters up there on a trip. And I think I went to bed at 3 or 4 every single morning. She was gone for a week. I was working, and I can slip back into that schedule like that.
Yeah. So how do you stay focused? Like, that's the hardest part for me, is just staying focused.
I fight it all the time. I mean, it's like
I'm a 10 in quick start. So I'm like,
yeah, I'm a 7, and I just fight it. I need to be in a more confined space where I don't have too many distractions around me. I have to block. I use an app called Freedom to block out all the websites. I have basically every website I care about reading blocked. I don't have any social or YouTube or anything on my phone. And so if I bring up a browser on my phone, it's almost 100% blocked from all news, even on Sundays. I mean, almost, because it does nothing but suck the life out of you. So if I want to look at that stuff, I have to do it on my iPad. I make a list of what I'm going to do each day. Don't necessarily follow it, but I try.
I do the same.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. Like, I was thinking about something. This happens every minute of every day to me. There's something I looked at yesterday, and my son Riley still lives at home. He's got like part of the house, and so you have to make an effort to go see him.
He's in the East Wing.
Yeah, he's got an office, a room. He's got the whole deal going on, and so I just had some idea. It's like, I just remember this yesterday. It's like the most important thing. I just had this idea. I need to go tell Riley about this idea for his software product or something like that. And it's that kind of thing that happens to me all the time. So I try to just write it down on a piece of paper and not let myself do stuff like that. So it's just a bunch of little rules like that I use to try to stay focused. And I don't always follow them, but I try my best.
Yeah. Are you reading any books right now? And the reason I ask is I have something to say with it. Like, when I start reading a book and I'm walking or listening to a book, like, it'll make me think about something totally different while listening to the book. And like, oh, that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it just gets my brain firing or what.
Yeah. No, it does the same for me. But that stuff can also get me a little distracted. So there's nothing. I mean, I've got, I actually have a ton of books right now that I've started and I'm not finishing any of them. I'm just kind of losing interest. And so I was going to look real quick.
Yeah, and I get the same way. And if I get into those books I just don't care for, I just don't finish them. I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to move on to the next one that I like.
I have no problem not finishing them. I've got a ton of, I'm just looking here. I was looking to see if any have jumped out. I'm scrolling my list. They're almost all fiction right now. I got Alex Hormozy's book. I haven't read either yet, but I some point want to read them. But I haven't been able to get excited, although he's awesome. There's no negative there. His books will be great for me working on marketing stuff to get my brain turning again, but haven't got through them. Play Bigger is a book that I've wanted to read for a long time.
I have that book. I haven't read it either.
Yeah. I started it again. Haven't read it. We'll just see if there's anything. Another Alex Hormozy book. There's two. I bought a book called Buy and Build. Made it like 10 minutes through that book. That's about it. Everything else is fiction. So no. And I've unsubscribed from almost every podcast. I only subscribe to 2 podcasts. So
which ones do you subscribe to then?
Lex Friedman and All In.
Lex is awesome.
Yeah. And so everything else, I still look through them. Sometimes I try not to let myself listen to me. I'm trying to work. Because what happens is I go listen to something and then I just get a new idea. It's like, I don't need another idea. I just need to do the 50,000 ideas I already have. And so that's what I remind myself of all the time.
It's like the 80-20 principle, right?
Mm-hmm. And I love learning. So I like listening to other stuff. I find it I have to be careful. A lot of that stuff is just pure, frankly, entertainment. And you could call it learning, but it's entertainment. I'm blowing through it at a fairly fast speed. I'm not taking notes. I'm not writing down the takeaways. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm just zipping through the stuff. And then, like you said, if I'm out walking and I'm listening to something, I'll miss 8 minutes of what was just said, thinking about a new idea. And then I'll hear something and then my brain's gone for 10 minutes and I'm like, oh crap. And I got to rewind.
Glad to know that I'm not the only one.
Oh no, this is what happens to me all the time. And then if I let myself listen to that stuff at night, I'll lay in bed till 3:00 in the morning, listening to stuff with all these ideas. I'm writing notes in the middle of the night on the phone. Tiffany will be like, turn off your light. It's like
2 weeks ago, I did the same thing. I was listening to this podcast and jumped up out of bed, grabbed my iPad. 2:00 in the morning, I'm writing out the scripting for what the next 5 offices are going to look like the playbook, basically, is what I was building. I was like, holy man, I got to get this out of my head onto paper so I didn't forget it.
Yep.
So I'm the same way. What was the goal to get back into CitiTurf? I know you always said you wanted to, but what's the goal? Like, are you trying to? Do you want to grow revenue? Do you wanted something to do?
I love that business. I mean, was my baby. And then, as I said, Philip, who runs the business, and he's just done a great job building a well-run business operationally. And it's a business that I personally would like to hold for the long term. We get tons of offers for it. People approach us constantly. And I think that's happening in the market in general, but it's pretty significant. And so we've absolutely had time to reflect on this because some of the numbers have been amazing.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Are you building it to sell?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we might. We might someday, but I don't think so. I mean, I actually think there's an argument that if we are going to do it, we need to do it pretty quick because of valuations are so strong right now. But I don't know. You never know what's going to happen.
Need to sell it either, right? You're in a good spot financially.
Yeah, I mean, and then I'll just take them as I tell these guys, because seriously, I've got my highest offer is 20 times EBITDA.
Shoo.
Yeah, it's not a written offer, but it's a serious group and serious offer. I mean, but it's like, I don't know, until you write the check, who knows? You could just be trying to get me. And so I don't put tons of, I don't give it a lot of credibility because I have no idea. It's coming from a serious group, but you can't not look at that number and say, multiply that by $3 million. It's a decent number. And so, but it's like, the business has so much more runway that why would we do this now? Even if valuations come down, let's say, I'm not even counting that value, but just say the valuations get cut in half. I'm still eventually it's going to be worth way more than, that number will make up 60 million at the moment. Like, and if we took that money off the table, what am I going to do with it? This is what I tell everybody. I'm just going to turn around, put it back into home services because this is what I believe in. This is a great place to deploy money. So why would I take the money off the table, pay the taxes, and then come right back to the thing I'm already doing? That's stupid. And why I don't want to have to rebuild the team. I don't have to rebuild the brand. Like we have got this perfect launching place to just keep going. So I can't fathom selling the business. And, I'm in a completely different financial position than, partners in business, and even them are like, why would we do that? I don't want to do that. So, so no, I don't, I can't foresee selling it.
Is there like a percentage of revenue that you want to grow this year?
I'm not so worried about growth this year. That's not my focus this year. I'm not really involved in that. They're running the business. I am more about building everything for 2025.
Gotcha.
That's sort of how, so I'm there. For example, I'm not trying to I've built a bunch of campaigns, but I haven't put any of them into, now they're putting some stuff into play, but I'm not paying any attention to that. I'm just building everything that needs to get built so that we're fully ready to go for 2025. And 2024 will be a good year for us. Last year was a good year. But it won't be crazy growth, or it hasn't been in years. It'll be a solid year that I think we're all going to be happy with. At least that's how it looks. And so I'm more thinking 25 on. How do we go faster?
Are you going to expand your footprint? Like meaning get a little further from the shop, or you don't need to yet?
No, we can go way further. We're in a very fortunate position that the market is continuing to grow. And our footprints, it's been slightly extended over the years, and I maybe didn't even realize it. And some of that simply came from, you'd have a city that's just got a huge footprint, and that city has expanded in my example here, north. And so we serve another market. It's not one of our biggest markets, but there's a market called Frisco. And Frisco's got like the PGA's there. There's a Disney thing coming. There's all this stuff coming. Like that city was nothing back in the day. And that city just keeps expanding north. And so our footprint naturally extends. We're still in the same city, but they just keep going north. So our trucks go further and further north. And so to a degree, it's been extended. I can't really get my head around expanding this market for years to come. Just like all the money's in density, and just get better at marketing and actually do it. We haven't been marketing the business. There's no need. We're that's not the situation for many. It's a fortunate position for us that I happen to be born in this area that was tiny, and it's grown into one of the fastest growing places in the United States. I mean, it's a massive advantage for me. And, I've said it before, other people are sitting in Arkansas somewhere or in your city, and they're beating themselves up saying, what's wrong with me? Why can't I grow a business like Jonathan? Well, the math isn't there. It's absolutely impossible to grow a business like mine. I grew up in the country with hundreds of acres around me. And now my parents have a school, a church behind them. They've got apartment complexes around them. They've got senior living places about to be built on the land directly behind their fence. And they're about to be like this little 3.5 acre property surrounded by city. I mean, in a sense, it's just insane. And we lived in the middle of nowhere when I was a kid, nowhere. And so it's very fortunate. So that's what's happened in my market. And that's part of the formula. It's not the story, but it's a little bit of the formula of why CitiTurf has been able to become CitiTurf. And one of the reasons why we've been able to keep growing without spending any money on marketing in at least 8 years, at least, maybe longer.
That's awesome. I don't want to shift gears too much, but automation, as far as like AI and maybe some robots soon, is that something that's on CitiTurf's mind?
No.
Cool. And then did you guys get your H2B guys this year?
I have a lot to say about robots. We can talk about it later. I mean, just real briefly, because I have a bunch of stuff coming on that.
Sweet.
And so no is a little bit too brief of an answer, but no, it's not something on the short-term horizon for us right now.
Did you guys get your H2B guys?
We did. Thank goodness.
How many? Usually in the past, you've got over 100, right? 80 to 100-ish?
150, 30 to 50. I don't know.
Okay. Was it 2020 where you didn't get them?
17, and then again in 2020, I think, twice.
How do you overcome that? Like, I mean, that's your model, right? You get H2Bs, you got 100, 150
Part
guys
of the
coming.
model. I mean, we have a bunch of guys that we've helped become citizens. Yeah. And then we've got a bunch of people we hire here locally. We need H2B visa heavily for the lawn mowing part of the business. And so, and then we use some of those guys do some irrigation. Some will do some assists on FERT. Some will do bed and bush. So they're mixed, but it's heavily for mowing. And when we didn't get them, it was, it's been a disaster, and it's required just all hands on deck to go recruit. And to a large, one year we had to recruit predominantly all contractors, which is not something we like to do. And, that's how we survived. It was bad, but we survived.
Yeah, you got rid of a lot of services too, like bi.
You got rid of all the bi-weekly.
Yeah.
And that was bad. That's really hard on reviews. People get mad when you let them go. I've been a loyal CitiTurf client for 6 years, and then you fire me. And I understand their perspective. And we did it as gracefully as we could. And we had a full 1-page letter, an email that sent out to everybody, explained exactly the situation. And so then somebody will post, "Oh, you fired me. I understand I don't make as much revenue, but you fired me because I don't make you as much money as I." People put their spin on it. It just hurts your reviews in a serious way. So it's destructive to the business in more ways than simply having to recruit contractors who will not do as good of a job and haven't been trained by us for years and years.
Yeah, I know one of the things that you preached from day one was gates. Shut the gates, lock the gates, don't let the dogs out. It's like one of your contractors' first year during 2020, and they let 2 dogs out. They both got ran over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been terrible.
Yeah, so it's not ideal. No, it's not perfect, but how do you overcome not getting 150 guys?
We did the best we could. I mean, and I shouldn't even say we, because I was not part of that. The team, they did that. I mean, it was all hands on deck, as I understood it. We weren't selling. We just stopped selling new revenue. We moved people into different roles, as I remember, to do inspections and just anything we could do to assist in getting the contractors up and running and watching them closely. And, it messed the whole business up for quite some time. It was very difficult, but it was something I think there was 5 or 6 million maybe more than that. There's a lot of revenue at risk, having lost that many team members. And so it was about how do we've over the years built these relationships with these clients. How do we not lose them? It'll be very hard to ever get them back. And so it was about protecting as much of the business as we could. And we just they did what they had to do to get there. And we had some very unfortunate situations that I think that beat the team up pretty hard, which makes them never want to have to go back to contractors or live through that stuff.
For sure. Going back, would you do it any differently?
I'd have to ask them, because it was boots on the ground for the team. But no, I think we did what we had to do.
Right, I agree. I mean, how do you overcome that many people? You just don't.
I mean, after seeing the way people react to being let go, even in a client being let go, even in doing it as nicely as you can, and kindly as you can, and explaining the situation, people don't react to it well. So if we had to have fired 4,000 clients instead of call it the 1,000 we did, I don't remember the numbers exactly, that would have been really hard on our reputation in the market. It's another argument for, why we wouldn't have wanted to do that.
So I'll ask you another question. Like, I know you want to go out there and do new marketing on Indeed and in the marketplace to recruit more people. Is that to get away from H2B as much as possible? Or are you still all in on H2B?
I don't think we're going to leave. We're not going to leave H2B. I mean, our dream would be that program's expanded, frankly, but I don't believe it will be. And so, I mean, I have no idea, but why would I believe that? I've been in the business long enough to have my dreams dashed every year to know that that's not going to happen. I'm old enough to know how politics works. It's all a pipe dream. Nobody wants to solve this problem. And so, I feel like we'll just continue to play the game, and we want to minimize H2B in the business, but it's important to the business model of lawn mowing. Lawn mowing doesn't work without H2B to a large degree. And then it's a source of some amount of team members. I mean, if you think about it, we've been doing H2BV so long enough that a lot of our team has been with us for a decade. It's the same guys that keep coming back. These are phenomenal people that are well trained and we trust. And why would we would not want to use them. They're some of our very, very best people. And so we'll keep doing it. We just don't want to build. We don't want to bring in 300 H2B guys.
So are you changing your business model?
We've changed it over the years. I mean, we are our number one revenue source service is now fertilization. So it's been evolving. I mean, back in the early days when you knew me, it was like 80% of all revenue was mowing and bed and bush. And then there was some irrigation and fert. Maybe it's never 80. Maybe it was more like 60. And then it was irrigation and fert. I don't remember, but we've evolved the business model. It's one of the reasons why the business top line hasn't grown very much after we reached 10 million. It's slowed. I mean, we're well past that, but it's just slowed in terms of percentage of growth. But also during that time, we reinvented what I would call the quality of the revenue. We shifted more to the higher margin, better COGS type services. And on top of that, services where it's a little bit easier to recruit team members.
Do you have any mentors now, or are you in any other groups?
No, I've been in a group called Tiger 21 for about 4 years, but that's more of a financial thing than it is a business group. And I'm not in any other groups. I might at some point, depending on what I do next, but I don't have anything in mind. I don't know what it will be, but I believe in them. So probably someday.
Next question. Are you going to start any groups soon? 2.0.
I don't know. You always ask me that question. And I think when I was with you at the lake house, the answer had moved up here. And now that I'm gone again, it's moved back down here.
I just got to talk to you more often.
So I think I left there being pretty persuaded that, I'm probably going to do this again sooner than later. And I still have incredibly fond feelings about it, but I've got so many things that I look at that and say, well, I need to stay focused over here. I've got these other things going right now. I've got 3 things essentially going, and I want to stay on those 3 things I've got right now. And 2 of them are pretty new. And so I think that might happen, but I mean, the frank answer to that is it depends on what I do. If I do another software thing with John, if I do another business with John at some point, then probably not. But if I don't do another business with John, probably so. But then something else might come up in the interim. I just don't know yet.
I won't hold you to it. But like you told me last week, or maybe it's earlier this week, just stay focused on what you're doing. Don't get sidetracked. And you told us, and I mean, a long time ago, like the bigger you guys get, the more opportunities you'll have. So the hardest part is just to say no.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It's constantly some new opportunity I feel like I'm getting hit up with.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Are you happy to be back to CitiTurf?
Oh, yeah. I'm really happy. Yeah. I mean, I could see a vision. I mean, I feel like Philip and I could build a 9-figure company together doing this. I mean, I don't need to do anything else. I could just do this. If I wanted, I mean, we could go into all kinds of other markets and build this thing. And that would be cool. I've thought about it. It's like, oh, maybe I just do that. Like, I like teaching and education, and I like technology. And so my sort of guiding principle right now is go back to the 80-20. I'm not really making my decisions on what will make me more money or I think about that. I, of course, would like to make more money. I don't know why, I just can't help myself. And, but that's not frankly, my goalpost is this fun. That is my goalpost. There's a lot of things I'm doing that I should hire somebody else to do this thing. I should be delegating, and I know it. I've done it. It's like, but I don't care. I just want to do this right now. So that is really my measuring stick is this what I want to do, and is this fun? And that's how I feel about CitiTurf right now. It's just
super
fun.
Awesome. Since we brought it up, you said that you had some stuff to talk about with robots. Where are you at with all that?
Oh, yeah. So I'm still very optimistic on the robot thing. And I've got some new, maybe we'll mention it here a little later. I've got some new social stuff coming, new YouTube channel, and I've got a 6-part series coming on robotics. And so I've been very involved. One of the things that I have done during the sabbaticals, I've been on the board of a business in robotics. And so I've stayed close to the robotic space. but I don't build the business. I don't run the business. I'm just very aware of what's going on. I still feel very optimistic about robots. I just don't love the business model right now in home services. The business model for robots is working in commercial, and it's working in very specific segments of commercial, and it's working right now, and it's growing. And so the story of robots is it works in certain use cases, and in other use cases, it sucks for a whole variety of reasons. And so for the market that CitiTurf serves, it does not make sense for us. And then if you think about opportunity cost, there's not enough margin or profit in robots in the space that we serve. Even if we said, hey, we want to build a big business, why would we build a big business in robots right now versus doing it in a different space? I mean, a different industry or a different vertical market. It just doesn't make sense for us. And so for that reason, that's why I said, no, it's not something we're considering. But it doesn't mean that the space can't work. It doesn't mean it won't work. It doesn't mean it's 20 more years away. It doesn't mean any of those things.
I felt like that was the teaser to part 2 of this. Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Pest Control Millionaire. We don't charge any money for the show, obviously, but the podcast isn't free. You can pay for the podcast by sharing it with your friends and your family. So please like and subscribe and give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. These things make a huge difference for us. If you have any specific questions you want answered about the business or your life by me or my guests, send an email to info@pestcontrolmillionaire.com. And if you want to get in touch with me about any personal business coaching, check out our website at www.pestcontrolmillionaire.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys again on the next one.